Well, let's get more on this now with Joe Siracusa in Melbourne, Australia. He's an author and professor of security and diplomacy at Curtin University. Good to have you back with us, Professor. It's interesting because Zelensky's wartime address to the US Congress comes 81 years since the former UK Prime Minister Winston Churchill made a similar address. What do you think has the Ukrainian leader achieved in Washington, and how has he been received?
Well, it was a great personal success, I think. He rolled the dice. He told them that Ukraine needs America's help, without which it may not survive. And Oscar, this is dripping with irony. 6 years ago, this leader of Ukraine was trying to. He was begging President Trump for an invitation to Washington, and now Trump has disappeared. And Zelensky is the lion of Washington. I mean, it really is extraordinary what happens in 6 years. But look, he made it very clear to the Americans today two things. Number one, he doesn't need any boots on the ground. He says the Ukrainians can handle this themselves. And number two, that if they give him advanced weapon systems, and he's looking for a Patriot and more artillery on the ground and modern tanks and the rest of it, he says he will use them responsibly, which means that he'll make sure that they don't get hived off or wind up in another country, or that there isn't going to be any corruption. So he's made it very clear to the Americans that while he's going to be doing all the fighting, his people will be doing all the fighting. What he needs from America is a line of credit. Now, this guy's broke, Oscar. He needs $5 billion a month to pay his bills, for the Army and the public service and the deficits that he's running up. His country is 19% annexed by Russia. Probably another 15% has been destroyed or leveled by artillery, and people are suffering malnutrition, they're cold, and their educations have been interrupted. 7 million people have fled the country, 14 million people have been dislocated. I mean, I don't know what victory is here, but I do know this, that no war has ever ended without some kind of diplomacy. And so I think the Americans behind the scenes or in back channels are going to have to think of some way to help Zelensky get off the hook. We hear a lot about providing President Putin with a off ramp. I think President Zelensky needs an off ramp too.
Can I ask you more about the US's ongoing support for Ukraine? Because the Center for Strategic and International Studies says US aid to Washington so far has totaled some $68 billion. And we know that the White House is asking Congress to approve a further $45 billion package. How crucial has US support been for Ukraine's fight against Russia? And how much longer can it go on for?
Well, I think American support up to this point has kept Ukraine in the fight. I mean, keep in mind that Putin is up against about 30 nations in NATO, 27 nations in the European Union, and none of them have given as much as the American people or the American taxpayer. Without this kind of aid, he probably would have folded or had to compromise somewhere down the road. But, this aid can't go on forever. I mean, in my lifetime, I've heard these same kinds of speeches from the leaders of South Vietnam and then the leaders of Afghanistan. We'll never leave you. You'll never be alone. Well, I got news for you. Yeah, they do leave you, and you are alone at the end of the day. But the Ukrainians made it very clear they're going to go down. They're not going to go down with a fight, and they don't need foreign troops on the ground. They can do it themselves.
Okay, Professor Joe Siracusa, we'll have to leave it there, but great to get your analysis as always. Thank you.